Hello students and parents, and welcome to the final video in the Fremont High Driver Education Series. This video will focus on the road test. We'll be talking about what you're to expect on test day, as well as what things we're looking for to make sure that you pass on the first attempt. The road test is the final step for students to complete before they can get their license at the DLD. Students already completed the written portion of the driver's license test when they got their permit. Now they have to show that they can demonstrate the skills after completing the theory class, range, and road instruction. Okay, now when it comes to the road test, all right, you will be prepared to take this test during the drive with your instructor. So make sure to pay attention when you're driving with them, because they will show you all the things you need to do and demonstrate to pass. Okay, the driving test will be 1 hour in length. It will be 30 minutes per student. Usually we can get it done in about 25 to 30 minutes max. It usually does not go longer than that, so it's about an hour total. On the driving skills test, students are allowed to miss 20 points. Students can miss points for various things, and we're going to be going over those in the next couple slides. But students are allowed to miss a maximum of 20. Once students miss 21 or more, it no longer is a passing score, and students will have to come back and retake the driving skills test. Students are only allowed by law to take the test every 24 hours. So you must wait 24 hours before you can take the driving skills test again. The driving skills test consists of 11 mandatory skills. 5 of them we're only going to do once. So for example, backing, parallel parking, hill parking, U-turns, and three-point turns will only be done once during the test. Left turns, right turns, lane changes, stop signs, stop lights, and speed in zones will all be done multiple times. Students will be doing lane changes to the left and to the right. Students will be turning right at stoplights. They'll be going straight through stoplights and turning left at stoplights. We want to see them at stop signs and on their approaches. Okay, we want to see how students are monitoring their speed in residential areas and in business areas, and if they're paying attention to the signs and monitoring their speed and driving the conditions of the road. Okay, now these mandatory skills are evaluated using grading codes. So for example, down below, there's a list of different violations that students can do, and they can be applied differently for the different skills. So for example, the emergency brake. All right, if students are doing a hill park and they forget to put on their emergency brake, they will lose 2 points. But if they also turn their wheels the wrong way on a hill park, they will lose another 2 points. So they can actually have these stack up. So for the hill parking, they could lose 2 points for not putting on their brake and 2 points for pointing their wheels the wrong way. They could also lose points by the gap. There's a gap violation of another 2 points. Now, what's a gap violation? It's either they're too far from the curb or too close to the curb, right? In driving, we're looking to help students find that middle ground of how to be a good driver. It's not driving too fast. It's not driving too slow. It's not being too close to the curb. It's not being too far from the curb. Okay, so on these skills, students can lose more than just 2, 4, or 6, or 7 points. Okay, now I will say this. The most points that I as an instructor can remove for a skill would be 5. So if students miss 6 points on the hill parking, the most points I can take is 5. So actually it ended up just being 5 points in total. All right. So keep in mind, students aren't going to fail the test just because they can't parallel park or they made a mistake on the hill park. They have plenty of running room. Students can miss up to 20 points and still pass. And the key here is we want to make sure that your habits and those things are being formed during your drive. So when you come and drive and do the skills test, you can then apply those skills and show us that you're really demonstrating proficient driving. Okay, now these skills down below, they are wide and ranging, and they can be used in different ways on each of the skills up above. And if you have questions, come talk to an instructor, and I would happily, and all the others would give you examples of when they use these different codes on the different skills, because we've seen them violated in numerous ways and in different opportunities. So just talk with an instructor. They'll be happy to help you understand this test better. But looking over that list, just make sure that you're becoming familiar with the terms and what it is we expect you to be able to perform and what potential pitfalls there are. Observational driving actions are different from mandatory skills. The mandatory skills are the things that we expect students to be able to perform with proficiency in order to pass the exam. But while they're performing these, there's other actions that we can observe. So for example, let's say we're doing the parallel park and they shift it into drive and then shift it into reverse and then they accidentally shift it back into drive. I would mark them down for a gears violation because they're shifting gears during their mandatory skill, okay? Or if they're at a traffic light and they put it into park, that's also them putting it into a different gear than what they should be doing, okay? So these are just actions that we're just observing throughout the drive. Another one could be situational awareness. They're up at a light turning left, and they had an opening, but they're not taking the move to make that left turn, and someone behind them honks at them. They're not being aware of the situation. They're not showing me that they understand how to make left turns at lights with some confidence, okay? Another example could be lane position. New drivers tend to veer away from oncoming traffic, and they hug the right side of the lane. And I could catch that and say, hey, one of the things I want you to work on is being more center inside your lane, okay? And these are things that we just see as instructors that are going to help them and give them advice on how to be better drivers. And remember, the driving test isn't all about just trying to get through and pass, but it's also a learning experience where we get to have our final sit down with them and see what they need to work on before they leave. And a lot of the things they need to work on are in these observational driving actions. And so when we talk with them, we want to go through these things to make sure that they're getting them and can successfully complete them so they're more prepared and safe on the road. Violations or dangerous actions will result in an automatic failure of the test. So basically, all of these different actions are 21 points automatically. The most common one that we see is habits. That's on the bottom left side. Any observational driving action or mandatory skill with all those codes, if they do any of those things 3 times, it's an automatic failure. So for example, if students are signaling to the right and they forget to head check, okay, they forget to look out that back passenger window to the right, then that means they will get marked down once, and if they miss it again, it's twice. And once they do a habit 3 times, it's now considered a dangerous violation, okay? We can do this with any of them. So for example, I had a student in the past who stopped 3 times just randomly when they shouldn't have. That was a habit. They were stopping. They were becoming a hazard to other drivers on the road, all right? So basically, any of the above codes or observational driving actions, if you do it 3 times, it's a habit, and that means you need to come back and retake the test after waiting 24 hours, okay? Another one that's common is students going onto the curb. If they're parking and they roll up onto the curb, it's much easier than it looks. A lot of students do it. And, you know, they want to get close and they get nervous and they go up on the curb. Well, then now they have to go and retake the test. You should not be leaving the roadway and get your license. Okay, you got to be able to stay on the road. If students get in a crash, they will be expected to retake the entire course. This is not something that we as Fremont would like to do, but it's something by the state. They have to go all the way back and you have to retake theory and range and road instruction and then come back and retake the test. So be very careful when you're on the road and try to avoid getting in any form of a collision, okay? A lot of these we don't see too often, but those are the ones that we see the most commonly, okay? Just review the list and make sure that you're familiar with these things and try to avoid doing them on the test, okay? If you're attentive during your road instruction time, you will not have to worry about these actions, right? We're going to teach you how to drive safely and proficiently and get you prepared for this driving test. Okay, now if you do any of these other things, it could lead to the result of you not passing the test. Once students finish the driving test and successfully pass the exam, they can go to the DLD and get their license. In order to go get their license, they need to make an appointment online. They can either go to the Brigham City or Ogden Driver's License Division. We find that the Brigham City has the most openings and is the easiest to get into. But if Ogden's closer for you and you are able to get an appointment, you can go there as well. Basically, when we finish the test, students can then go immediately to the DLD. We have a system that we put their test score into, and it will get recognized by the state immediately, and so you can go and make an appointment and get in and get your license. You don't need to wait for the DLD to get our information. It happens very quickly. Occasionally, as instructors, we do make mistakes, and if you get to the DLD and there's something wrong with the records, you can always call us, and we can make a change on our end. We have to make those changes, and we can get that fixed for you. It doesn't happen very often, but every now and then aren't perfect. We do make mistakes. Also, when you go get your license, you have to have your traffic trends exam completed. You should have done that at the very beginning of the theory class. And the very first thing that we did with us is to do the traffic trends. And if you, for some reason, didn't finish it or get it done, they will force you to get it done. They'll tell you to go take a seat in the corner and go work on it. And then when you're done and get 100%, you can then get your license. So just keep in mind, make sure that is completed. Make an appointment and just verify with us as instructors to make sure everything looks good on their end. I do it, and the other instructors, we also double check each other's work to make sure it's lining up. If you have any questions, please come talk to an instructor. They'll be glad to walk you through any of the steps and processes. And that's it. You've now successfully gone all the way from theory, range, road, to finishing your test, to going and getting your license at the DLD. Congrats, and look forward to seeing you on the road.